श्री गणेशाय नमः। श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शरणं प्रपद्ये। कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम्। योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्। So in this very beautiful and auspicious place, we are gathered here for meditation camp. When this meditation camp was planned and organized, Swamiji asked me if I can take Rama Raksha, Vishnu Sahasranama or Hanuman Chalisa, and I gladly agreed because who would want to waste this opportunity? So I took up this opportunity and decided it will be an opportunity for me again to go through these texts and think and visualize. Anyways, so when we look at these three, usually these three are referred to as stotra. Rama Raksha stotra, Hanuman Chalisa stotra hai, और Vishnu Sahasranam again a stotra. But interestingly, the thing is, with all these three, we have committed a crime. Crime in a sense, we know them, we may chant them every day, we may know them by heart, but we have neglected them in essence, which we call as ati parichayat avajna. When we know something well, or when we are familiarized with something way more than or in excess, then we neglect its importance, its essence and its purpose. So you can add many other columns also, many other adjectives also, why we neglect them and the reasons. Anyways, that is not the important point here, but we have neglected them. That is the point. Then what is the solution? Study them. If we have neglected them, stop neglecting them. That is the only option. अति परिचयादवज्ञा संततगमनादनादरो भवति मले भिल्लपुरंद्री चंदन तरुकाष्ठम इंदनम कुरुते. As good as costly as sandalwood, that sandalwood is used as wood for burning. That is the neglect that we have given for these things. Then what we need to do is, we need to understand where we have gone wrong. We have been chanting these three mechanically. Interestingly, if anybody of you want to try, just do one thing. If you really believe that we have not been chanting this mechanically, we know them really well, ask someone to give any part of verse in between and try to start chanting from there. It will be difficult. Either you will need to know the line before or the line after, then only you can continue with that same stotra. Another idea. You may be chanting it in one particular way, one particular speed and one particular rhythm. Change that rhythm. Change that style. You will still forget. Why does this happen? That is the nature of our chanting. That is the nature of how we speak or how we have been reciting this stotra. So we are at fault, then we have to change. So let us change today. So in these 5 lectures, we are going to see the overview alone. Before I begin, let me put disclaimer in the beginning. I am not going to go word by word for all sutra. Of course, it is impossible. But what I am going to do is, I am going to put 4 topics, or I am going to discuss in which we will be capable of independently studying and understanding these stotras. So we call them stotra. Stotra, the word has been derived from root word shtu. Shtu is stavane. Sanskrit root word shtu is stavane, and stran pratyaya suffix has been added. The general meaning, the meaning of that word is stava, to praise, eulogize. That is the meaning. Now, stotra, the meaning of word stotra is to pray. My question is, why do we pray? Let us start from the basic. What is the purpose? Why do we need to pray? One thing is simple. To express gratitude, that is not the answer. The first thing is we want something, that's why we pray. It's just simple basic. Why do we express gratitude? Let us come back, even that answer is appropriate. But why do we express gratitude? Because the next time he will help me again. Is it not? We pray. Why? Because I am at my own capacity level. From this further, my own purushartha, my self-efforts are not capable of giving me what I want to gain. Then I surrender to someone who is capable of doing that, and to him I pray that please do this for me. We are going to discuss this point when we are going to discuss Artha, Jidnyasu, Artharthi and Jnani, the 4 types of Bhakta as explained in Bhagavad Gita. So, we pray to gain something. Now, who do we pray to? There is a large spectrum, large variety of things to which we pray, starting from inanimate objects to human and to Ishvara. Again, by definition, if you want to go, before you go to Ishvara, there are many other Devata. There is hierarchy and there are specifics. For this particular need, we need to pray to this particular Devata. Again, it is a particular arrangement, it has been made with purpose, but that's what we are here to discuss. Okay, stuyate anaya. Let us not go away from the topic. Stuyate anaya. That by which we pray is stotra. Now, the point here is, okay, it is good thing to pray, it is good thing to ask for help, but it should be in particular way. And when we come to stotra, any stotra, there are certain rules and there are certain specifics. Why? Because the result that we are going to gain from praying, or that stotra, should make us better, should help us progress in our sadhana, rather than making us get addicted to the result of that karma or upasana, that is praying. For that purpose, stotra should be according to Shastra, as it has been given in the scriptures, sacred texts, and not with my own whims and fancies. It should not be something which I like, something which I found beautiful, something which I found interesting. No. So any stotra, it should be according to Shastra. Why? Because it should not go against the doctrine, Siddhanta of Shastra. So what we have seen so far, in conclusion, simple. We chant stotra because we want to gain something. We pray because we want to gain something. And what is stotra? That by which, the means of praying, that by which we can pray. And stotra should be according to Shastra. It should be as given by the Shastra. It should not be something out of my own mind. And it should have Siddhanta, a doctrine imbibed in it. It should not go against the Siddhanta. Why am I saying this is because when we pray to a Devata, and this is a very important point, this is not in relation with stotra, but it is important because sometimes when we see some idols, like idols of any Devata, particularly in Ganpati festival, there are many idols which are in some modern forms. That is not allowed, that is not accepted. The reason being your upasana goes wrong. The purpose of that idol, the purpose of praying goes away, and it will not help you at all. Anyways, so when we look at all this stotra, we need to know from where it all started and why did it start. Because the highest authority for us is Veda. Vedas are full of mantras, suktas. Suktas themselves are stotras. They are the stava, they are the praise of Ishvara. And if that is the case, if they have prayed, they have eulogized in that, why do we need another source, another text, something else with which we can pray? Is it not? The one question that we always ask is, if there is one certain product, if there is certain thing which is giving me same result, why should I buy yours? Why should I use this thing? I have a car, okay. Why should I buy your car? I already have a mobile. I have more than needed. Why should I buy the mobile that you are trying to sell? Then he will give me the benefit of using his product. So there should be some benefit in stotra like Rama Raksha, Vishnu Sahasranama or Hanuman Chalisa, all others which have certain benefit over Vedas. What is it? That we need to understand, and when we understand that importance, our vision, our idea about these texts, about this stotra will change. The importance that we have lost for these will be gained back. Then what is that which makes this stotra better? Simple. These stotras are not bound by endless number of rules like learning, studying and chanting of Vedic mantras. Vedic mantra chanting is bound by n number of rules, starting with when to chant, where to chant, how to chant, from whom to learn, when to learn, why to learn, n number of things. And if we go into the specifics of that, we can hardly study even one sukta. We have got stopgap arrangement today by which we learn, but it is a stopgap arrangement. It is just accepted with time, but it is not going to give us results as it should when the rules are followed. So what is to be done now? Another option has been given to us, because Rishimunis, Rishayo Mantra Drashtaraha. Those who were Rusha, Rushati Gachati, the dhatu, the root word itself is Rusha, Gacha. And the word meaning, any Sanskrit word which is in the meaning of going, Gachati, is also used in the meaning of knowing. So Rushati, those who know, those who have given us mantra, they are Rishi. Those who have composed Vedic mantras, or not composed, those who had seen, because they were the mantra drashtara. In their highest level of meditation or highest state of samadhi, they saw those mantras, they came to them, they were revealed to them. Then, if that is the case, they understood that over a period of time, people are not going to follow certain rules, so it will be difficult for them to study, learn Vedas. So they gave us alternatives for which the results were the same, but the binding of rules was not. So stotras, anybody can chant, at any time it can be chanted, it is going to give us the same result, it has the same purpose, everything. So coming back to stotra, praise, exaggeration. Now we have understood why stotras are important, because they are giving us same result and they are not as rule bound, time bound as Vedic mantras, even though their origin is in Vedic mantra. Now comes the important part. We said we pray to gain something. Now, when we pray, how do we pray? What is the nature of that praise? There is exaggeration. Let us say I am going to ask for some money, and if I go to someone and I tell him, you have such and such amount, I know, please give me this much percent, I will give back this one. No. When you go, you have to say to him that आप कितने दानशूर है प्रभो, you are the best among the all, you are the best donor that I know, etc. You have to make him climb the tree. You have to make him so soft, you have to butter him, and then what you want will be given to you. So there is an exaggeration. थोड़ा बढ़ा चढ़ा के ही बोलना पड़ता है. But in the end, that is possible for someone who is finite, someone who is limited. Is it not? The exaggeration is possible for someone who is in the realm of duality. But tell me, is this exaggeration possible for Ishvara, who is Sarva Shaktiman, Sarvajna, Sarvatra, Sarvavyapaka? Then my question is again same question. If we want to pray and in praise there is exaggeration, and exaggeration is not applicable to Ishvara, why should we pray? So the purpose of prayer, I want to gain something. What I want to gain, that is subjective, that topic is going to come later. So I want to pray, but the person to whom I pray is not worthy of my praise, because people should not be praised, and for Ishvara he is not eligible for my praise, because I cannot pray him. He cannot be captured by words. Then why should I pray? We will come to that point later. Why am I asking these questions is because these questions will make you think, and only then you will understand the importance of the mantras or the stotras that we are going to chant, or we are chanting, or we have been chanting for all these years. Anyways, a side point. What we have learned in Vedanta, or what we know, or what we accept is Ishvara is impartial. Is it not? Then why should I pray? If he is impartial and is going to give me the same result whether I pray or not, why should I pray?
To make myself ready.
No. When I pray, see, for this we have to stop thinking from Advaita standpoint. that is the problem with us when we start learning Vedanta. In Bhakti, even though they accept that Ishvara is impartial, yes, ईश्वर पक्षपात नहीं करते, भगवान पक्षपात नहीं करते, परंतु वह भक्त का साथ देते हैं. ईश्वरा इज पार्शल, ओनली देन भक्ति इज पॉसिबल. When I pray to Bhagwan, when I devote myself to Bhagwan, he helps me. Now, what is the nature of his help, whether he helps everyone or not, that analysis is different. But if you start analyzing that, then we are not bhakta, we are jnani, we are inquisitive. We just have to surrender, and when that surrender happens and we accept, yes, Bhagwan will help me, वो मेरी रक्षा करेगा जब मैं उसकी भक्ति करता हूँ, then I am a bhakta. Otherwise, I will fall in the category of jnani bhakta. And then, when I start inquiring more about his nature, I somewhere lag behind in my prayers. That's why we need to pray. So the prayer is not possible for Ishvara. I cannot pray. Still I need to pray. Why? Now, when we are on this topic, understand. Ishvara is out of question. So, because of exaggeration is not possible for him. I cannot pray Ishvara. Actually, we have very beautiful 2 verses. There is one verse which is in Pushpadanta's Stotra, Shivashiva Mahimna Stotra. Asitagiri samam syat kajjalam sindhu patre sarovartarusha lekhani patramurvi likhita yadi grihitva sharada sarvakalam tadapi tava gunanam ishaparan yati. Now this is exaggeration. But that is the rightful exaggeration. What has been said is, if we take all mountains on the earth, powder them, mix them in ocean water and make kajjalam, like black ink out of that. Take branches of Surataruvara, divine tree, the tree that is in Swarga. Take branches of that, make pen, lekhani, that is boru, the old time, olden pens. Make pen out of that. Make paper out of this earth. And start writing. But we are not supposed to write. Who is writing? Ma Saraswati. Saraswati herself, Goddess Saraswati herself, she is writing. She is praying Isha, Bhagavan. And she may go on writing for eternity, still that praise will always be incomplete. That is the nature of Ishvara. So coming back to our earlier point, why should I pray? Because when we pray, we are committing first crime in our relation with Ishvara. There is another very beautiful verse which we need to remember. It says, Yatranaya sarvagata hatate, Stutyanaya vakparata hatate, Dhyanena chetah parata hatate, Shantavyametat mamaparadham. Bhagavan, I have committed 3 crimes. When I came to you, when I came to meet you in certain temple at certain place, yatranaya, by yatra. I committed my first crime. I know you are everywhere. I know you are Vyapaka. You are present everywhere in every human being. Still, to meet you, I came to a point. I came to your place, certain temple. By that, I forgot that you are Vyapaka. That is my first crime. Stutyanaya, by doing your stava, by doing your praise, I committed my second crime. I know Vakparata, you are beyond words, you cannot be captured by words, yet capture you. That is my second crime. And my third crime is I tried to meditate upon you, I tried to capture you with my mind, but that is also not possible. But still I did. That is my third crime. Forgive me for these three crimes. Now this is praise. This is stotra, this is stava. And then we understand, why do I need to pray? It is not for Ishvara or for something, it is for myself, me. And when we understand that, then we come to one point which I want to get to, because there are certain points in between, but we will come to them later. The nature of stotra, what is the purpose behind them, they really are, and why do I need to pray? Let us address that directly. If I tell you, you are that Brahman which is formless, nameless, present everywhere, you will say he is a madman and you will go away. First of all, it is difficult to grasp. Even after having learned, it is difficult to accept. Even having accepted, it is difficult to act by it. And if you act by it, there is nothing more. You are liberated. You are mukta. These are the three problems that we face. For that purpose, what they did is, they explained that same Brahma Tattva with form. Nirvishesham param brahma sakshat kartum manishvaraha ye mandaste nukampyante savishesha nirupanaihi. Nirvishesham param brahma, that Brahman which is nirvishesha, without any form, adjective, without any lakshana, etc., which cannot be described, that same was explained with rupa, name and form, etc. For whom? Those who were incapable of directly experiencing that Brahman. Which Brahman? Nirguna. Those who were incapable of experiencing that Nirguna Brahma, for them Saguna Brahma was explained, told, Anukampyante, out of pity, for their help, Savishesha Nirupanaihi. And what will happen because of that Savishesha Nirupana? By that explanation with form, etc. Vashikrute manasyesham saguna brahmashilanat tadevavir bhavet sakshat apetopadhi kalpanam. And when they experience that Brahman with form, automatically the upadhi, the adjectives or the limiting adjunct conditionings that have been given, added to that Brahman, that conditioning will be dropped off, it will go away, and they will experience that Brahman directly as it is. How is it possible? For which, let me give you an example. So, there is a very beautiful concept in Vedanta. In Panchadashi it has been given. It is called as Samvadi Brahma and Visamvadi Brahma. Let me tell you the example first so you will understand. So, you saw even during morning time, morning meditation at night, if you look outside, it's pitch dark. And it so happened that you are the last person on the terrace. And far away you saw a source of light and you thought, it is my greatest day. there is a very beautiful, a precious jewel which is shining in the distance. Anyways, there are maybe around 20 minutes for dinner and elders are going. I am young, so what I'll do? I have time, I will go there and I will pick that gem up. Sone pe suhaga. I have come for meditation. Anyways, I am going to be mukta. Before that, let me get that gem, because after I get liberated, I will not have desire to get that gem. Right? So let me get that gem beforehand. Now I start walking towards that. So I start going there to get that gem. And when I go there, I realize that it's not gem, but in a distant temple, somebody has lit a lamp. So I say, anyway, सोने पे सुहागा, आए हैं तो नमस्कार करके जाएंगे, let's go back. So I prostrate to Bhagwan and come back. But in another situation, when I go there and if actually I find jewel, what will be the outcome? Positive outcome. Now the point here is, understand, whether there is gem, jewel, or whether there is lamp is irrelevant. What I saw was just light. What I saw was source of light. But what I superimpose on that source of light, the knowledge is source of light. But what did I superimpose on that? That it is a jewel. Now, if I actually go there and find jewel, it is called Samvadi Brahma. Brahma, a delusion, a superimposition which was beneficial, positive for me. And when I go there and if I find lamp, it is called Visamvadi Brahma. The definition for Samvadi Brahma has been given as Ayatha Vastu Vijnanat. Ayatha Vastu Vijnanat, knowing an object, Vastu, Ayatha, as it is not. Phalam labhyate ipsitam. Ipsitam phalam labhyate. I gain the result which I desired. I saw the source of light. I thought that it is jewel. Now source of light is not jewel. Source of light is source of light. Light is just light. But I thought that it is a jewel. So it is ayatha vastu vijnana. Knowing something, an object, as it is not. And yet, when I approached with that knowledge, when I acted upon with that knowledge, I gained ip labhyate, ipsitam phalam labhyate. I gained the result which I wanted. Kakataliyatas swayam samvadi brahma uchyate. So this opportune result is called as samvadi brahma. Why this analysis? The analysis is because by doing Saguna Brahma Upasana, we can gain Nirguna Brahma Sakshatkara. Now, when you are doing Upasana, as we said earlier, that Nirguna Brahma has been explained with form. Let us connect these dots to the stotras that we are going to refer to, Rama Raksha, Vishnu Sahasranama and Hanuman Chalisa. In all these, somewhere or the other, the Upanisha will come about Satya, Jnana, Ananta, Brahma, etc. That will be explained. So, in Upasana, that same Brahman is described with form, with certain attributes, and it is explained that this is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. There is this Vedasara Shiva Stotra. Yato jayate palyate yena vishwam tamisham bhaje liyate yatra vishwam. I pray to that Bhagavan Shiva from which the entire creation has been born, by whom the entire creation has been sustained, is sustained, and I pray to that Ishvara, that Bhagavan Shiva, in whom this entire creation undergoes dissolution janmadyasya yataha. As are the attributes, as is the explanation for Nirguna Brahma, same has been given for Shiva. But when I take particular form, when I take particular attribute and give it to that Brahman, I am capable of meditating, I am capable of doing upasana. Coming to this point, upasana. For Stotra, now we are at a point where Stotra and Upasana are at same level. Why do we pray? What is the purpose of Stotra? They are means of Upasana. Now, if we go to the definition of Upasana, the definition of Upasana is, it is given in Bhagavad Gita Bhashya by Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji. Bhashyakara, he says, उपासनं नाम यथाशास्त्रम् उपास्यस्य अर्थस्य विषयीकरणेन सामीप्यम् उपगम्य तैलधारावत् समानप्रत्ययप्रवाहेण दीर्घकालं यत् उपासनं तद् उपासनम् इत्याचक्षते. Simply put, creating a continuous flow of thoughts towards the object of meditation in accordance with Shastra. Why does this sound familiar? Why does this continuous flow of thought sound familiar? Because Swamiji explained in meditation. Is it not? Then what is the difference? Swamiji mentioned one word, nididhyasanam. Then what is the difference between upasana and nididhyasana? There is a large difference. Let me give you the direct answer. Upasana is Purusha Tantra, Nididhyasana is Vastutra. What do you mean? What is it? Let me give you the answer. What is this? Book. Can I say, no, this is a notebook? No, this is a book. I cannot write in it. This is not for the purpose of writing, but this is for the purpose of reading. So this is a book. But can I call this pustak? I can. Can I call this grantha? ये पुस्तक है, ग्रंथ है, कह सकता हूँ. So what I should name it is dependent on me. But identifying, calling this or knowing this as something else is not in my hand. That is the difference between upasana and nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is vastu tantra. What is nididhyasana? Nididhyasana comes, or it follows the path of knowledge or line of inquiry. ताभ्याम निर्विचिकित्सेर्थे चेतसः स्थापितस्य यत् एकतानत्वमेतद्धि निदिध्यासनम् उच्यते. ताभ्याम निरुचिकित्सेर्थे, ताभ्याम श्रवण मननाभ्याम. When Swamiji talked about making ourselves eligible, that is this shravana and manana. You have to undergo rigorous shravana, repeatedly listen to Vedanta again and again, again and again, again and again. Then after having heard that, you have to imbibe, you have to think over it by yourself, and then when you have accepted, my earlier point, we know, we accept that Jiva Brahma Ikya, the oneness is possible, but we don't act according to it, we don't act upon it. Why? That's where Nididhyasana comes into picture, because all our previous vasanas, all those past impressions, they make us believe, they make us act as I am this body. To remove this viparita bhavana, nididhyasana is given. That is the purpose of meditation, nididhyasana. But upasana is different. In nididhyasana, Brahman is called as Brahman only. Nirguna Brahma is Nirguna Brahma only. But in upasana, a choice has been given what to call. How should it be identified? The theory or the core part is same, but in upasana it is according to Shastra. They have just added certain things by which we can grasp. Now you may ask why it should be according to Upasana. If I am going to do Upasana, if I am going to think, if I am going to meditate, let it be according to my own liking. Shastra says, thank you, go ahead. If we give you that liberty, then you surely are going to mess that up and you are going to go further downward spiral than where you are right now. Let me give you this beautiful example about this. It just came to me. So what happened was, there was a person. He went to a doctor. Doctor said, I have examined you. Do one thing. This is the medicine, and what you need to do is you need to have light food. Halka phulka khao. He said, okay. Doctor said, you know? He said, yes, I know what the light food is, light intake is. So he came back home and told his wife, आज से हल्का फुल्का खाना बनाना. The wife asked, what is it? He said, don't you know what is light food? Let me explain. So what he did, he took handful of mud and put that in a glass of water. What will settle down? Of course, mud. And what floats above? Water. So he said, look, the water is lighter than mud. Then he poured some oil. Now what's floating over water? What's floating on top of water? Oil. So what is lighter than water? Oil. And what floats on top of oil? Bhaji, puri, chagli. That is light food. No. So it is not according to what I think, but according to what it is. That's why Yatha Shastram Upasanam. Upasana should be as given by Shastra. That's why any stotra, praise should be according to Shastra and not something what I want or what I like. That's why Upasana. Now, we have understood stotras are nothing but the means of Upasana, by which I can come much closer to Bhagavan, Ishvara, and it is my relation with him. See, if you take any stotra, any composition, you will see the composer's relation with that who has been praised, the one who has been praised. And it is very much evident. If you see Shiva Mahimna Stotra, the reason for that stotra is different. The situation from which it came out is different. Rama Raksha Stotra, different story. Hanuman Chalisa, it has its different story. Vishnu Sahasranama, it has its different story and origin. Or Ravana's Stotra, Shiva Tandava Stotra, it has totally different story. But would we use Shiva Tandava Stotra for Upasana? Shiva Tandava Stotra, composed by Ravana, a very beautiful composition. But would we use it? Doubtful. We may know it by heart just to impress or just to enjoy the beauty of that meter, etc. But no. We know, like, we have been chanting Rama Raksha, or we know these stotras by heart, we have been chanting from our childhood. But we don't chant these stotra every day, Shiva Tandava Stotra, etc. That is the relation. When I'm praying Bhagavan, when I'm praying Ishvara, when I'm expressing myself to him, that is my relation. And when we come to that, that's where we land in Artha Jidnyasu Artharthi Jnani. The question that we left out, why do I pray? Because I want to gain something. I am in one of these categories. And when these categories come into picture, also we have to understand stotra is of different types. For stotra, there is one verse which explains different types, different nature of stotra. नमस्कारस्तथाशीहि सिद्धांतोक्ति पराक्रमः विभूति प्रार्थना चेति षड्विधम स्तोत्र लक्षणम. A stotra, a praise, is of 6 types. Either it can have namaskar, prostrations, tatha ashihi, blessings. We are not blessing someone, we are seeking blessings. Then siddhantokti, explanation of doctrine, siddhanta, what is. Parakramaha, Ishvara's might. Vibhuti, Ishvara's vibhuti. And then prarthana. Let us take simple examples. Namaskar. Anywhere where we say namami, ide, that is namaskara. Namami Sharadam Devim. Namami, I prostrate, I do namaskara. Ashihi, dehi, give me something, bless me. Ashihi. Siddhantokti, as we saw, yato jayate palyate yena vishwam, or vishwam darpan drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam. Best composition, highest form of composition where entire siddhanta of Vedanta has been given. But yet it is the praise of Dakshinamurti. Then Vibhuti, 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You know, Ishvara's might, Ishvara's prowess, Ishvara's capabilities, where all we should see Ishvara, Bhagavan, that has been given. Prarthana, prarthayami, prarthayami manasasara, chintayami satatam. And then Parakrama, his might. Rama Raksha or Ramayana, in many places we find that. Now, these are the types of stotras. Now, let us connect these with Artha, Jidnyasu, Artharthi and Jnani. If somebody who is Artha, what will he do? He will do namaskar and seek blessings. Now, Artha is not just desirous. If he is just desirous, then he will be Artharthi. Artha is someone who is fed up with samsara and now he is trying to be better, trying to gain moksha, but he is somewhere failing, he is not capable of doing that. That's why he is seeking blessings. So he is doing namaskara. Bhagwan, I prostrate to you, I pray to you, I am doing namaskara so that I gain knowledge, bless me. That's it. Now when he is doing that, slowly from Artha he becomes Jidnyasu. Now when I am seeking blessings, when I am praying to Bhagavan, I should know who he is. Then he becomes Jidnyasu. And then when he becomes Jidnyasu, he is given, he is explained what is the nature of Ishvara. Why should you pray to him? Why should you pray to him only? After that, it comes to Artharthi. Artharthi is someone from out of these 3. Artharthi is Prarthana, Vibhuti, Parakrama. That is given to Artharthi. Now these are general categorization. Don't take it just perfect, exact correlation. They are mixed up. But general categorization can be done by this way. So he is the one who is Artharthi, the one who is desirous of gaining something. What will he do? He will do Prarthana. He will try to know Vibhuti, Parakrama. And then Jnani. Jnani, he is happy, satisfied with Siddhantokti, because that's what he is seeking. So that is Artha, Jidnyasu, Artharthi, Jnani. For all these four kinds of devotees, Bhakta, different stotras are given, or in one stotra itself, all these things are included. So by taking one point, he can do upasana, he can progress further. In conclusion, why should I pray? So because wherever I am, whether I am right now Artha or Jidnyasu, I should progress to Jnani Bhakta through means of these stotras. That is the purpose of this stotra. Now, when we come to stotra, I would like to explain you, or I would like to take your attention to another particular point, which is Anubandha Chatushtaya. Anubandha Chatushtaya, as you know from Vedanta, Adhikari, Vishaya, Sambandha, Prayojana. I am not going to go into details of Anubandha Chatushtaya with respect to each and every stotra that we are going to see, but Anubandha Chatushtaya in general, let us understand. Anubandha Chatushtaya Adhikari. Adhikari is a qualified person, competency, etc., as it is said, but Adhikari is someone who is capable of gaining results. Adhikari is not just qualification. But when we talk about Adhikari in relation to Vedanta or Anubandha Chatushtaya, a person who is capable of gaining results is Adhikari. If he is not capable, he is not Adhikari. Then who is the Adhikari for all these stotra? Everyone. Anyone can chant anytime, anywhere. There is no certain rule. Now there are certain exceptions to these rules. When, where, that we will see when we go into the details. So Adhikari, Jo yah padhe Hanuman Chalisa, hoya siddhi sathi. Jo yah padhe. Anyone, the one who chants. Then even in Rama Raksha, एताम राम बलोपेताम रक्षां यस्य कृति पठे सचिराय सुखी पुत्री विजयी विनय भवेत. जहाँ सुकृति पठे, the one who chants, saha, the one who chants, he will be. It has not been mentioned who he is, what should he do, nothing. The one who chants, he will be vijayi vinayi bhavet. He will be winner, he will gain everything in the world, etc. So adhikara is for all. Everyone is qualified for gaining results. So everyone is adhikari. What is Vishaya? Vishaya, the praise of that particular devata. Vishaya is upasana. Whatever the reason with which it has been composed. Then Sambandha, the connection, relation. Upasya, upasaka. These are the means of eulogy, praise, and Ishvara is the one who has been praised. I am upasaka. I am the one who is praying. And these are my means. Bodhya, bodhaka, sambandha. In Vedanta here, upasya, upasaka, sambandha. Now, the last part is prayojana. This is where things become difficult. The prayojana from stotra standpoint is upasana, gaining brahmajnana or gaining sakshatkara of that deity, devata. But what we do is bhajante anya devataha. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan laments. He says, even though I am in front of him, they pray to other deities, other devata. Is it not that when we are praying to Bhagavan, when we are praying to Ishvara, when we are in stotra calling him Sarvashaktiman, Sarvashaktishali, everything, in our heart we desire for something worldly pleasure or something worldly object? Is that not where we are going wrong? The prayojana, actual prayojana of stotra and the prayojana with which we chant that stotra, there is a large gap. We need to fill that gap up with the understanding all that we have studied right now so far or today, whatever that we have seen. We need to study the bridge that gap. If I chant any stotra of, say, let us take simple example. If I want to do better in studying, what should I do? Simple. गणेश जी की उपासना करो, माँ सरस्वती की उपासना करो, pray to Ganapati or pray to Saraswati. Very good. Do that. But understand, even though she is going to give me the result, in reality she is that form of Ishvara which is going to give me this particular result. Understand? Otherwise, the problem, see, this is very serious point. Otherwise, we will be not better than Ravana. Let me end today's topic on this point, so that for knowing answer you will come for the next lecture. The thing is, do you know Ravana, if you ask him, did he not pray to Vishnu, Bhagwan Vishnu? Did he not pray to Bhagwan? He did so much austerity, tapasya, upasana for Brahmadeva, Vishnu or Shiva. Then, if he did that much austerity and upasana, why did he not know that they are Brahman, they are different forms of Brahman, Ishvara? He said they are not Ishvara. They are those who are bound to give me results for my action. They are bound by me, by my actions. I have bound them. They have to give me results. That's what was his thinking. He was not ready to give up his ahankara. He said, Rama, who is it? He is just a simple, who is crying because he lost his wife. He is just a human being. He never understood what Ishvara Tattva is. That's where we are going wrong. Understand? Even though we pray to Bhagwan, even though we pray to Ishvara, we do not accept him as Ishvara. You know why? Because if we accept that, our ahankara will go away. We cannot accept someone who is controlling my life. My life is in someone else's control. In reality, it is not. I control my own life, but the results are given by someone else that I am not ready to accept. कोई एक है जो मुझे मेरे कर्मों का फल देने के लिए बैठा है. I am not ready to accept. And don't worry. You may think that this is something foreign. Don't worry. In a Purva Mimamsa, a Darshana accepts similar thing to this. If you look at Vakya Bhashya of Kenopanishad, in that there is whole argument, whole part of Bhashya where it has been explained that Ishvara is karma phaladata and not the karma itself giving result. Again, this is going off the topic, but just to make you understand where we are going wrong, because we are thinking on that particular line. When I pray to Bhagwan, when I pray, do stotra, or when I chant Ishvara, now Ishvara has to give me result. Why? Because I have prayed these many times, he has to give. In that we are saying, because I have done karma, the karma is going to give me result. No, karma is not going to give me result. Of that karma, when the result should be given, when I will gain the result, is decided by Ishvara, and at that particular moment, at that particular time alone, the result will come to me, and that will come to me because Ishvara is there. That is the line of thinking. Ishvara is going to make sure that the result of my actions comes to me at its intended point, at its intended time, place, or time and place. So whether it is 100 years later or 100 births later, it doesn't matter. Karma is inert, karma cannot do that. With this understanding, when we pray, we will know that this is not mechanical chanting what I should do, but it is my relation with Bhagwan and I am going near to him. It is a form of upasana. With this, now we have what is the overview for today's session, or the session that we had right now. You will, after I give you conclusion, you will say, "Pahad khod ke chuha nikala." So in the end, the conclusion is, stotras are means of upasana by which I can come closer to Ishvara Brahma Tattva. For that, with this vision, I have to chant stotra, and you have to look at stotra as means of going near to my beloved deity. When I understand the importance, now with this changed vision, we will look into all these three stotra, why they were composed with Anubandha Chatushtayas, etc., and certain parts of those stotras, but that we will continue in next session. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.